The next piece of this is really about interdependence. The way that the system works is that you cannot go it alone. In order for your contributions to stick, they have to earn the agreement of your fellow contributors, which is a powerful forcing mechanism for people to work together.
So what is going on here? Well, this is the new CEO, Katherine Maher, of NPR. She is the former CEO of Wikipedia, and she's talking about truth and facts, and how facts are a collaboration. Really? Really are they now? Modern medicine ran into this problem more than once, and I'm glad that it overcame it, because we'd be a lot worse off if it hadn't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as I recall, when developing germ theory, this was an issue. Most doctors are like, there's no such thing, or this isn't a problem, it's not an impact. And then they did studies, and doctors were all like, this can't be true. Yep, it is. Same thing was true with getting patients home after surgery, getting patients out of the hospital and home as soon as possible, because they do better in their native environment, their, I guess, so-called native environment. They heal better. They feel better, they heal better. And doctors were like, there's no merit to this. And then they did studies. And doctors were all like, haha, I was right. See, you gave us all the paper, and it's vindication that I was right. Patients don't do any better when they're at home. And then the presenters revealed that they reversed the papers, that the facts on the papers were reversed, and patients who did better were actually the ones who were sent home sooner. So she has a lot to say about facts and how she doesn't understand what they are, which is pretty sad, considering she was the CEO of Wikipedia, and now she's the CEO of NPR, which I listen to NPR, as I've mentioned, on my commute. I haven't listened very much lately because I haven't had my commute. I've been working remotely. Hopefully that will continue on forever, but I don't think it's going to. NPR, they say things like, oh, if you want the facts, you come to us. Oh, you want non-biased news, you come to us. And it's like, we all know. This lady right here, amazingly biased. Here, check this out.
Gender diversity and gender parity is incredibly important to us. I mentioned earlier, a third of the startups that are here are founded by women. We have a Women in Tech track, which is out on the floor. In 2021, more than 50% of our attendees are women, and we're on track for similar numbers this year in terms of gender parity. Gender parity in gender representation is deeply, deeply important to me.
And this was not just a one-time thing with her on some Forbes video that nobody saw.
You have nailed one of the biggest challenges Wikipedia has on the head, right? The fact of the matter is that most written knowledge today has been written by white, colonial, European, North American men. And so one of the things that we're really focused on is, how do we think about correcting the record? How do we think about writing people into history? How do we think about writing people into the present who haven't been represented in the same way? Knowledge, when we talk about knowledge for the whole world, it needs to be reflective of the whole world. And so one of the first things we do is we measure the gaps. Who is missing on Wikipedia? Women are missing, people of color are missing, people from the global South are missing, indigenous communities are missing, the history of Black Americans is missing from Wikipedia. Then we think about who's doing this work today and how can we support them. And it's not just about, say, for throwing money at the problem. It's also about going directly to these communities and saying, what do we need to change about ourselves? What about the experience of editing Wikipedia? What about the culture of Wikipedia? What about the policies of Wikipedia need to change? Because in reality, the beautiful thing about Wikipedia is it is changeable all the time. It's edited 350 times a minute. So if we want to change it, that's fully within our power.
So there you go. This is from The Daily Show. If you weren't looking at the screen, Trevor Noah was the host then. But she's going on about how it's women, it's people who are the right color. These are the people that we need who are going to tell the truth. These are the people we need to succeed, because if they don't, then the world is worse off for it. And how do you know? How do you know? I don't know. We don't have those facts and figures before us. And she went on to say that Wikipedia is edited 350 times a minute. That means it's not very reliable, in my opinion. But she wants to go on and say, we got the truth here. We got it.
For someone who's watching and wants to be armed with the truth and help make possible the perpetuation of truth.
So one of the wonderful things about Wikipedia is you don't actually need to be an expert.
Oh, you don't need to be an expert, huh? Well, I mean, to be fair, that is argument from authority, which is a fallacy, right? Saying that I'm the person who's done the most work here, therefore I know the truth. And I think that is actually, kind of a weak fallacy, in that they're probably right, but the reason it's a fallacy is because just because they're an expert doesn't mean they're not wrong. Just because they're an expert doesn't mean there isn't some truth that they're not aware of that can be dropped onto their lap, and then they can say, oh crap, I was wrong. Hey, what do you know? But she herself said earlier, we saw it earlier, she said this is a collaborative effort to get to the truth, which is the same thing. It's saying we've all come together with all the different knowledges and we've all agreed on the one truth.
The next piece of this is really about interdependence. The way that the system works is that you cannot go it alone. In order for your contributions to stick, they have to earn the agreement of your fellow contributors.
So she just said, we heard it, that you need to collaborate and you don't need to be an expert. She went on that same conversation to say that you just need to have good, reliable sources. Then why does she care so much about what she's going to say right here?
Who constructs information comes back to this, who has the leisure time to do it. And everybody who gets to step into Wikipedia knows that it is primarily men who contribute to Wikipedia. It's about 85% male. And there are significant gaps in terms of coverage of women, minorities, people from the global south, minority languages, anyone who's part of a group that has been historically marginalized or excluded. You're going to see a gap on Wikipedia about that content. You're also going to see a relative deficit of folks from those communities editing Wikipedia. Now, there's many reasons for this, but there's no question in my mind that part of this is because volunteer labor is not something that is equally, volunteer opportunities are not something that is equally available to everyone. And so
it's 80% men, she says. And why is that surprising to anyone? Men care more about facts than women do. Women care more about feelings. The facts don't care about your feelings. Feelings don't care about facts. We know it goes both ways. But men are also more likely to put themselves into a position where they have leisure time to be able to do these sorts of things, right? Women will get into positions where they have leisure time and then they'll fill it up with junk, watching their stories. Nothing against stories. I love stories, but, getting their hair done, doing all these things that are just leisure activities, going to the spa, etc. She said there that 80% of Wikipedia editors are men. Well, that's different from what she says here.
it is famously written by men, about 80% of its contributors.
So is it 80 or 85%? Or is it that you don't care because you're a woman and facts don't matter to you as much as they do to a man? And how does she come to that number? How is it 80% or 85%?
Something we do in conjunction with hundreds of thousands of volunteers, millions of people all over the globe over 20 years.
It's millions of people, hundreds of thousands of volunteers. How do you track the gender dynamics of that group? How do you know they're not lying? How do you know they're not saying they're the opposite gender or they're not putting a gender down at all? How do you know? You don't know. But of course, you have swallowed the Kool-Aid and you think that if somebody says, oh, I'm a man, it doesn't matter what their gamete size is, what their chromosomes are, or anything, what their reproductive organs are. They're a man. They said they're a man, they're a man. I'm sure she believes that wholeheartedly. But again, she doesn't know what the truth is, and this will prove it to you right here.
But I think if I were to really ask you to think about this, one of the things that we could all acknowledge is that part of the reason we have such glorious chronicles to the human experience in all forms of culture is because we acknowledge there are many different truths. And so in the spirit of that, I'm certain that the truth exists for you, and probably for the person sitting next to you. But this may not be the same truth. This is because the truth of the matter is very often, for many people, what happens when we merge facts about the world with our beliefs about the world. So we all have different truths. They're based on things like where we come from, how we were raised, and how other people perceive us. Now, you and your neighbor, who's probably a reasonable person, they look like a nice person? Yeah, they're probably a reasonable person. You two can probably get together and come to some sort of shared agreement. But what happens when a third person joins the conversation?
No, the truth is one thing. All of the truth is, there's just one truth. Now, you might have a different opinion. You might have a different experience, a different story to tell about the truth, or about you and how the truth relates to you, how you interpreted the truth, maybe incorrectly, maybe correctly, depending on who you are, because people are going to interpret things differently. That is not truth, though. That is your own individual experience. The truth is external to your own individual experience, because human beings are notoriously biased. Very much so. So, as disturbing as that is, which is it's the most disturbing thing I think that she has said, she does have one other thing to say that is very disturbing in regards to the United States of America in particular, and that's this.
On the side of governmental regulation, the number one challenge here that we see and is, of course, the First Amendment in the United States is a fairly robust protection of rights. And And that is a protection of rights both for platforms, which I actually think is very important, that platforms have those rights to be able to regulate what kind of content they want on their sites. But it also means that it is a little bit tricky to really address some of the real challenges of where does bad information come from, and sort of the influence peddlers who have made a real market economy around it.
So you know that the First Amendment is there to keep you honest. And the fake news that you're so concerned about is all over, rampant on Wikipedia. It's rampant on NPR. And this is why you have to stand up here and say, oh, look, fake news, because you've been called out. The mainstream media has been called out. It's been pointed out that the mainstream media is lying excessively, that the so-called kosher or agreed upon ideas that are put out there for the public to digest are largely inaccurate, at least. Now she's going to go on to tell us that she's against the written word and thinks that oral traditions need to be included in Wikipedia and in factual information. Oral stories, non-written stories, things that have been shown repeatedly to be inaccurate. But see, she doesn't care about the truth. She thinks the truth is based on your feelings. Whether I'm male, female, non-binary, alien, doesn't matter what I am. The truth is the truth. As long as I approach it with an open mind and report on it accurately, it's the truth. So I'm going to leave you out with this, and then after this, there's going to be a few more comments that she made on the TED stage that will end out the video. Thank you all for watching. I do appreciate everybody coming by and supporting work. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed because YouTube does unsubscribe people every single day. And I'll see you down in the comments.
Its policies of sourcing offer preference to European models of reference to the written word, excluding, for example, oral traditions.
Which means that Wikipedia may be one of the only places on the internet where disagreement actually makes you more agreeable. You have to be intentional about bringing all the voices in. When Wikipedia first started, the majority of its authors were Western white men, which led to some really significant biases and gaps in the types of articles that were written and the slant of those articles. Recognizing this by being intentional about undoing some of these systems that were actively excluding people and doing the hard work of actually rebuilding them so that more people would feel welcome in the conversation, we are now able to have a better reflection of the known world.